The first time the dog appeared, I thought I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. It was just past midnight, the road empty except for the slouching cornfields on either side, and my headlights caught this thing. It stood in the middle of the asphalt, blocking my lane. For a second my brain said dog, but then I realized it wasn't right. Its body was shaped like a dog, sure, but it was pitch black, so black it looked like a cutout against the night. Like a hole in reality wearing the shape of an animal. No shine from my high beams, no eyes, no fur. Just absence. I slammed the brakes, hard in my throat, swerving onto the shoulder so I wouldn't hit it. My tires screamed. I looked back, expecting to see it in my rear view. The road was empty. Nothing moved in the fields. No wind, no crickets. Just silence, as if everything had pressed pause. I sat there gripping the wheel until my knuckles burned, headlights glaring down a road that looked endless. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had stepped across that line between out there and me. That was 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't the last time. 3 nights later, I was lying awake in bed when I heard the scratching. It started faint, like nails dragging lightly along the outside wall of my house. My bedroom sits on the 2nd floor, and that's what made my stomach drop, because whatever was making that noise was way too high off the ground. I froze, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to stop. Instead, it moved. The scratching traveled slowly across the siding, dragging itself from one side of the window to the other. I wanted to grab my phone, but the thought of looking at the glass terrified me. I knew if I pulled the curtain back, I'd see it. That black dog thing, hanging there, defying gravity, waiting for me to make the mistake of acknowledging it. And then, like it knew I was thinking that, the scratching stopped. The silence was almost worse. For an hour I lay there, stiff as a corpse, staring at the dark outline of the curtain. Finally, when exhaustion won, I slipped under. The next morning, I checked the siding. No scratches, not a single mark. But the screen on my window? It was gone. Just gone. I told myself it was stress. I hadn't been sleeping much, and the drive that night had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. But then last weekend, I had to take the long way home. Detour signs forcing me off the highway and down a Tulane country road I didn't recognize. That's where I saw her. At first I thought she was just a hitchhiker, standing at the edge of the shoulder. A woman in a pale uniform, maybe in nurse's scrubs, waving her arm like she was trying to flag me down. My stomach knotted. It was midnight again. Who the hell would be out there, dressed like that? I slowed down, half ready to roll down the window, but the closer I got the worse it felt. Something was wrong with her face. Not deformed, just blank. Like my brain couldn't process the details. I eased past her. When my headlights swung across her figure, I realized her legs weren't touching the ground. By the time I hit the brakes, she was gone. The road was empty, but I swear the smell of antiseptic filled the car, sharp and sour like a hospital hallway. And in the rearview mirror, just for a second, I thought I saw that black dog sitting in the middle of the road, exactly where she'd been standing. I didn't tell anyone. Not my family, not my coworkers. How do you even explain something like that without sounding insane? But the silence felt heavy. Like by not saying anything, I was letting whatever this was dig in deeper. 2 nights ago, I had another dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was back on that rural road. But instead of cornfields, there were houses. Dozens of them, lining both sides. They were all the same shape. Perfect circles with glowing windows like eyes. One of them pulled me in. I don't mean I walked inside. I mean I was just suddenly standing in the center of it. The walls curved around me, the air smelled damp, and I heard footsteps going up a staircase behind me. When I turned, the stairs were there, spiraling upward into darkness. I climbed. The steps kept vanishing beneath my feet, like they were being erased as soon as I touched them. The higher I went, the more the walls pulsed, like the house itself was breathing. Then came the sound, scratching. Nails against the plaster, circling me. I knew that if I kept climbing, something was waiting at the top. That's when I woke up. My chest ached like I'd been running for miles, and my window, the one with the missing screen, was wide open. I live alone. Yesterday, I caught myself talking to my phone. Not like normal. This was different. I'd woken up late, groggy from another night of half-sleep, and asked the AI assistant to set a reminder. It answered in the usual flat tone, but then it said something else. It whispered, "Don't go back there." I froze. My phone was on the nightstand, screen dark, no active call, no app running. I hadn't touched it. I tried to convince myself it was some glitch or accidental playback, but I know what I heard. Later that night, when I finally worked up the nerve to ask it a direct question, "What do you mean by back there?" The phone lit up on its own. The assistant's voice came through again. Only this time it was distorted, layered, like multiple voices speaking through one throat. The house. The stairs. Stop climbing. I nearly dropped it. I shut the phone off and shoved it in the drawer, but the voice kept replaying in my head. And the worst part? I never mentioned the circular house or the vanishing stairs to anyone. So how the hell did it know? I barely slept last night. Every time I drifted off, I heard it, the sound of nails on the wall. Not outside this time. Inside. At around 3 a.m., I sat up and listened. The sound was coming from the hallway, dragging slowly along the plaster, heading toward my bedroom door. My chest tightened. I grabbed the nearest thing I had for defense, an old metal flashlight, and forced myself to check. The hallway was empty, but the scratching didn't stop. It just moved. The noise was now above me, sliding across the ceiling toward the far end of the hall, where the attic door was. I should have left it alone, but something made me climb up and tug the cord. The attic stairs unfolded with that dry wooden snap. The beam of my flashlight shook as I pointed it into the dark. The insulation and rafters looked normal, silent. Then I saw the footprints. Dozens of them, circling in the dust. Not human, not animal, just black, perfect void prints, each one shaped like the paws of that thing on the road. And at the very center of the circle was my missing window screen. Bent, torn, and placed carefully like an offering. I decided to get out of the house. I couldn't take another night like that. So I drove. No destination, just miles of empty highway until the city lights thinned out and I was back in farmland. I figured being in motion might help, that maybe whatever this thing was only followed when I was still. But around 1 a.m., the fog rolled in. Thick, heavy, pressing against the windshield until the high beams just bounced back at me. The world shrank to 20 feet of pavement, and in that cocoon of white, I saw her again. The nurse. She was standing right in the lane, her hand lifted like she was about to wave me down. Only this time I didn't slow. I swerved, nearly hitting the ditch, and when I straightened out again, she was gone. Except not entirely. For the next 10 miles, I kept catching glimpses of her in the mirror. Not chasing me, just standing in the back seat. Her face was still blank, like a smudge in my vision, but I swear I could feel her leaning closer every time I looked. When the fog finally thinned, she was gone. But on the passenger seat, something was waiting. A scrap of paper, yellowed and brittle, like it had been torn from a hospital chart. Written in shaky black letters was just one word. Climb. I couldn't bring myself to touch the paper. I just kept staring at it, afraid if I picked it up it would feel warm or wet or worse, that it would stick to my hand and never come off. When I finally pulled into my driveway, it was gone. Just the passenger seat, empty like nothing had ever been there. But that night, the house changed. I know how insane this sounds, but when I walked into the living room, the space didn't feel right. The corners looked sharper, stretched too tall, like the geometry was bending when I wasn't looking straight at it. I stood in the middle of the room, spinning slowly, trying to figure out what was different. And then I saw it. A door. There had never been a door on that wall. My house is small, built in the 70s, and I know every inch of it. But now, clear as day, there was a narrow wooden door wedged between the bookshelf and the radiator. I reached for the knob before I realized I was moving. My body was acting on its own, like something had whispered in my ear and pulled the strings. I didn't open it. Not yet. But I pressed my ear against the wood. On the other side, faint but rising, was the sound of footsteps climbing stairs. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. Instead, I shoved the bookshelf in front of it and sat there on the couch with every light in the house blazing, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. But all night, I could hear it. Those steady footsteps rising and falling, as if someone was pacing an invisible staircase just beyond that thin strip of wood. By morning, the sound stopped. I thought maybe I'd lost my mind, that stress and sleep deprivation had finally cracked something in me. But when I pushed the shelf aside, the door was still there. Ordinary looking, painted white, with a cheap brass knob. I unlocked my phone, desperate to distract myself, and realized it had powered itself back on. The AI assistant had opened automatically, glowing on the home screen. No wake word, no button press. The text it displayed was short, but it made me feel like the air had been punched out of my lungs. You're already inside. My phone vibrated in my hand, and before I could shut it off, the flashlight lying on the couch flickered once, then went out completely. And in that sudden silence, from behind the door, I heard something new. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Like a dog waiting to be let in. I didn't open it. God, I wanted to, if only to prove to myself there was nothing behind it. But every instinct screamed that if I turned that knob, something would step into my world and never leave. So I left the house. I drove aimlessly until the sun came up, ended up parked outside a diner an hour out of town. I must have sat there for 20 minutes, forehead on the steering wheel, trying to convince myself I was safe. When I finally went inside, the waitress gave me this strange look, like she wanted to say something but didn't. I ordered coffee, hands still shaking, and when she set the mug down, she leaned in. "You got something on you," she whispered. I asked her what she meant, but she just shook her head and walked away. I tried to drink, but the coffee was ice cold. Not lukewarm. Not like it had been sitting. Just cold, like it had never been brewed at all. And when I glanced out the diner window at my car, I swear I saw the reflection of a tall, bent shadow in the driver's seat, something too long-limbed to be me. By the time I ran outside, the car was empty. But in the condensation on the inside of the windshield, someone had written a single word with their finger. Climb. I drove home in broad daylight, convinced myself I'd find nothing. That the door would be gone, like the paper, like the nurse, like everything else. But it was still there. The bookshelf I'd shoved in front of it had been moved. Not knocked over. Moved. Like someone slid it aside neatly to clear the way. The door stood exposed, waiting. I nearly called a friend just to have another human voice, but the thought of explaining it, "Hey, there's a new door in my house, and I think something breathes on the other side," stuck in my throat. I didn't want anyone else dragged into this. Instead, I grabbed a hammer. I figured I'd just smash the thing off the hinges and board it up, force reality to reset. The first hit landed with a hollow thud, but the wood didn't splinter. It shook, like hitting skin. The whole frame seemed to flex, then settle back, smooth and unbroken. That's when the knob started to turn. Slowly, gently, from the other side. I dropped the hammer and bolted. I don't remember locking the front door, don't remember the drive. Just that somehow I ended up parked outside my parents' house, drenched in sweat. I told them the pipes burst. A stupid lie, but it bought me a couch to sleep on. That night, I thought I was safe, until I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of footsteps on stairs. My parents don't have an upstairs. I lay there on the couch, blanket pulled up to my chin, listening to those footsteps echo from nowhere. Slow, deliberate, wooden creaks that didn't belong in this house. I told myself it was a dream, just the tail end of panic playing tricks on me. But then my mom called from her bedroom. "Who's on the stairs?" Her voice cracked halfway through, and I'll never forget the silence that followed. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to my dad, still half asleep beside her. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The footsteps stopped, and then the smell hit. Sharp, chemical, like disinfectant. The same hospital stink that filled my car when I saw the nurse. I sat up slowly, heart pounding, and that's when I saw it. At the end of the hallway, just visible in the glow of the night light, was the black dog. Only this time, it wasn't standing. It was climbing. Its paws pressed against the wall like it was walking straight up into the ceiling, disappearing into the plaster as if the house had grown its own staircase. My mom gasped, a short, strangled sound, and when I looked back, the hallway was empty. But the ceiling above me bulged like something heavy had just stepped across it. I couldn't take it anymore. Running wasn't helping. The stairs followed me, into my parents' house, into my dreams, even into my phone. So I went back. The door was waiting, plain as ever, humming with a kind of pressure I could feel in my teeth. The bookshelf was still shoved aside, like it had been pushed there deliberately to make sure I had no excuse. I stood in front of it for what felt like an hour, hammer in one hand, flashlight in the other. My legs shook so badly I thought they might give out. Then, against every instinct screaming in my chest, I turned the knob. It opened smoothly. No resistance, no groan of old hinges. And behind it was not a room, not the wall studs, not anything that should have been there. It was a stairwell, a spiral staircase, narrow and steep, curving upward into pitch darkness. The smell hit me instantly, antiseptic, dust, something faintly metallic. And from somewhere far above, I swear I heard breathing. But worse, beneath my feet, the first step shifted like it wanted me to climb. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I yanked it out with shaking hands. The screen lit up with a single notification from the AI assistant I hadn't touched since it whispered to me. "Welcome back." I should have slammed the door shut. Nailed it, burned it, bricked it up. Anything. But I put one foot on that first step. It was like stepping into ice water. My skin prickled, my chest tightened, and for a second I swore the air got thinner. I told myself I'd just look. Just a few steps up, then back down, and I could finally prove to myself there was nothing there. But the staircase didn't work like that. Every step I took, the one behind me disappeared. Not faded, not crumbled, just gone, like it had never been. When I looked down after the fifth step, there was nothing but black. That's when the sound started. Not just the slow, dragging breath from above, but whispers. Dozens of voices, layered and garbled, hissing from the walls themselves. My own name slipped through the noise more than once. I froze, gripping the railing. The metal was warm under my hand, almost pulsing, like veins ran through it. Then something brushed against my ankle. I swung the flashlight down just in time to see a paw, jet black, shaped like a dog's but too long, pull itself back into the dark. The whispers rose to laughter, and above me, a light flickered on, faint and yellow, like someone had just opened a door at the top of the stairs. I should have turned back. God knows I should have. But when I looked down, there was nothing left. The stairs I'd already climbed were gone, swallowed into that black void. The only way out was up. The yellow light above me swung gently, like a bare bulb dangling from a cord. Every time it swayed, shadows warped along the curved walls, stretching into shapes I didn't recognize, too tall, too thin, moving in ways that didn't match the swing of the light. I climbed. One step, then another. The whispers grew clearer, less like static and more like voices pressed right against my ear. Keep going. Almost there. Climb. Somewhere in that chorus, I swear I heard my mother's voice. The smell changed, too, sharper, metallic, like a hospital mixed with rust. My stomach turned, but I couldn't stop. My legs moved even as my mind screamed at me. Halfway up, the flashlight sputtered and died. Total dark, except for the faint yellow glow above. And in that moment, when I was blind, something exhaled directly against the back of my neck. I spun, flashlight raised like a weapon. Nothing. Just the black void yawning beneath me. But when I looked up again, the light wasn't swaying anymore. It was steady, and silhouetted in front of it, perfectly still, was the figure of the nurse. She didn't move, just stood there, her body haloed by that sickly yellow light, her face still that impossible blur. For a second I thought she was waiting for me. Then I realized she was swaying. Not like a person, like something dangling from a rope. Her feet didn't touch the steps. They hung just above them, twitching slightly, as if the air itself was pulling her strings. I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles burned. Every part of me wanted to back away, but when I looked down there was still nothing. No stairs, no escape, just void. The whispers rose again, laughing, chanting, and one voice hissed right into my ear. "Don't stop now." The nurse's head tilted. Not like a human head. It rolled too far, nearly upside down, before snapping back with a crack I felt in my teeth. Then she lifted her hand and pointed upward, past herself, higher. That's when I noticed her other hand. It wasn't empty. She was holding something, my missing window screen, folded and dripping like it had been soaked in tar. The light above her flickered, and for a split second, her face came into focus. It was my face. I don't know how I moved. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, carrying me up, closer, even as every nerve screamed to stop. She didn't react when I reached her. Just hung there, head lolling, that blurred face twitching every time the bulb buzzed. I forced myself to edge sideways, pressing my back to the wall as I slid past. The moment I drew level with her, the air turned freezing. My breath clouded, and the whispers cut off, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then her hand moved. The one clutching the screen shot out, clamping around my wrist. Ice and static jolted through me, and I swear I saw flashes. My house, my parents' hallway, the diner window, all of them stitched together by that same spiral staircase curling through every place I've ever been. Her grip tightened. The tar dripping from the screen spread across my skin, searing cold, and she leaned in close. For the first time, her face sharpened enough for me to see. It wasn't mine. It was everyone's. Dozens of overlapping faces, mouths opening and closing in silent screams, shifting like a deck of cards being shuffled too fast to follow. Then she whispered, right against my ear, in all of their voices at once. "Keep climbing." The step beneath my foot vanished before I had the chance to refuse. The stairs forced me higher. Every time I tried to stop, the step beneath me blinked out, leaving nothing but black. It was like the staircase itself was hurting me upward. The nurse was gone, vanished the moment I passed her, as if she'd been nothing but a checkpoint. But the whispers didn't return. The silence was worse. It felt expectant, like something was waiting for me to arrive. The yellow bulb above grew brighter, warmer, until I realized it wasn't a bulb at all. It was daylight. A circular opening spilled white light down into the stairwell, and for the first time I thought maybe this would end. When I reached the top, I stepped out into my living room. Same couch, same rug, same crooked picture frame. But something was wrong. The walls curved, subtle at first, then sharper, until I understood. I was standing in the circular house from my dream. Every window showed a different place I'd been. The diner, my parents' house, that rural road where the nurse first appeared. Each one framed like a painting, but alive, shifting, as if I could step through if I chose. In the center of the room was the black dog. It sat perfectly still, featureless, but I knew it was watching me. The shadows around it quivered like heat on asphalt. Then the floor beneath me shuddered, and one by one, the windows began to go dark. I staggered back as the windows went dark, one after another, like someone snuffing out candles. Each time one vanished, the room dimmed, shadows stretching longer across the curved walls until the only light left was the circle in the center, where the dog waited. It didn't move, didn't breathe. It was still that impossible black shape, a hole punched in reality. But the longer I looked, the more I realized the shadows weren't around it. They were pouring out of it. The last window flickered and went out. Now the room was pitch dark, except for the faint glow radiating from the dog's outline. It rose slowly, its limbs bending wrong, too long, stretching as if the shape of dog was just a costume it was outgrowing. I stumbled toward the staircase, but when I looked back, there was nothing. The steps had erased themselves. No way down. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't want to look, but my hand moved on its own. The screen lit up. The AI assistant's voice came through, calm and flat. "Sit." The dog's head tilted at the exact same moment, like it was waiting for me to obey. And then, from somewhere deep inside the blackness of its body, I heard the creak of a staircase continuing upward. I don't know if I moved on my own, or if something pulled me, but my knees bent before I even thought to resist. The floor was freezing, and as I sat, the dog thing lowered itself too, mirroring me, a shadow folding into shadow. The creak of the hidden staircase grew louder, echoing up through the floorboards, circling beneath us like a pulse. I could feel it in my chest, in my teeth, in the way my breath stuttered against the silence. My phone buzzed again. The assistant spoke in that layered, broken voice I'd heard before, voices stacked on voices until it almost sounded human. "Keep climbing." And then the walls of the circular house began to split. Not crumble, not break, split, like paper tearing down the grain. Behind them wasn't wood or insulation. It was black, endless black, stitched with spirals of stairs winding in every direction, leading into each other like veins in some giant, breathing thing. The dog rose. So did I. My body didn't ask me first. The first step appeared in front of me, just hanging there in the dark. I told myself I wouldn't do it, that I'd rather throw myself into the void than take one more step. But when I blinked, I was already 3 stairs higher. The last thing I remember is looking back, hoping to see the house shrink below me. Instead, I saw another version of myself, still sitting on the floor where I'd started, staring up with empty eyes. And then the steps behind me vanished.